Okay.
Okay, we're good to go. So, um, we are in Shabbos Parshas Teitzei, and the second week of Elul. Next Shabbos is something very unique. We're going to have first of all Chaim.
So, yeah, Chaim.
Amen. So we're going to have something that's very unique this year. We don't get it all the time, and that is the ability to have the holiday of Chai Elul next Shabbos falls out on Shabbos, and Parshas Kisavai. So when Elul falls out on Parshas Kisavai and Shabbos, it's very unique, something special for Chassidim. There's a lot of, we'll talk about next week, a lot of stories connected to Shabbos Chayel, and a lot of Torahs that are connected to Shabbos Chayel. But the this week's Parsha is Teitzei, so it's the second week of the month of Elul, and there's some amazing ideas. The beginning of the Parsha starts off with really the end of last week's Parsha starts off with that about the person when the Jewish people go out to war. And when the Jewish people go out to war, there's made last week we went through the strengthening the encouraging words they hear from the Kohanim, from the high priest, and the encouraging words they hear from the people that are considered the shotrim, the police, so to say, that they're policing the situation to make sure that the right people are fighting in the right situation, and people who are fearful or have just got married or just bought a house and built a house. So different things that exempt a person from fighting, and what things exempt you totally, and what things you still have to participate in the war effort, so to say. So that's the ending of last week's parsha. But this week's parsha goes into really the idea of the laws of Yifat Torah, which is a very interesting halacha. The halacha of Yifat Torah is what happens to the soldier in battle. So you have, where Klal Yisrael is engaging the past better part of 10 months. We're almost a year now engaging in battle, all on many fronts and from many areas, part in Eretz Yisrael, and also it's not all in with armor, with physical armament, but in other places where we need strength. So the question is, what happens if a person falls vulnerable in the situation of battle, of war? And what happens? So it says if a person goes and he finds an attractive woman, yifastar, a pretty woman. And so the simple law is the Dibur Torah Geneged Yetzirah. The Torah says, okay, this is going to happen. Yetzirah exists, and where there's a Yetzirah, there's going to be temptation. And because of that, so the Torah is kind of trying to navigate the situation of temptation. And therefore, there's the laws of Yifat Torah. You have relations with her, you bring her home, and if you want to continue with the relationship, so she has to go through a process of 30 days until she becomes available to you so you can marry her. But there's certain also protection that we give to this young woman, that if you don't want to marry her, she's not your servant, you send her home with gifts, etc. So but in the deeper parts of Torah, we talk about this idea that's not just an idea of Yifas Torah, is not just an idea of a story of temptation, which it could be on a simple level, but it's also the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, the Holy Orach Chaim, talks about that the soldiers were on such a high level when they went out to battle, and they were mamish going out and fighting a war of Mechamas Hashem, a battle of Hashem. So why would we assume that they would be in such a vulnerability? So of course you could say the Torah is being practical. That it could happen. Even the most the most special, the most righteous soldier could fall to temptation. No one's beyond temptation. No one's beyond struggle. But that said, the Orach Chaim says there has to still be something deeper. And the Orach Chaim says that there's what we were talking about, Joel, you and I, before, about the souls. There's an intuition and an attraction a holiness has to each other, and there in general the difference in the world of Esav and the world of Yaakov is a world of hiskalulus, it's called inclusiveness, where the midos are able to be together with each other. Chesed and Gvura, although their personalities, kindness and severity, their personalities are not necessarily the same, and they're even opposites. But Oisei Shalom B'Mroim, God makes peace between Chesed and Gvura, between the angel Gabriel and the angel Michael, because in holiness, the definition of holiness is that you get along. And even if your personality is different, and even if your way of doing things is different, to the extreme of Chesed and Gvura, Chesed is all about abundance of giving, and Gvura is all about limitations. But if it's in a world of holiness, there's respect, and there's also a way to coexist. But in the world of Esav, the world of Esav is the world of Tohu, of chaos. It says that there was the breaking of the vessels. Why is there the breaking of the vessels? Because in the world of Tohu, there's each midah says it's me. My way is the only way. It's my way, the highway. And it's the way I see things in the world is the way it has to be. So when you see something that's opposite of you. So immediately you go out to fight it, and you go against it, and it's negative, and you have a million reasons to go against it, to fight it, because it's only about me. And what happens at the end with something where the person has no inclusiveness and no flexibility and no balance. So there was the breaking of the vessels in the world of chaos, in the world of Esav. There's no structure, because you can't have a world with only one way of doing things. And so the soul goes out to battle, and when the soul goes out to battle, the soul feels attractive to something holy, wants to have relationships with something else that's holy. And therefore the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh says that when a person goes out to battle, and all of a sudden in the moment of battle, he feels this pull, this attraction to this woman. So the Ohr HaChaim says it's coming that, of course, you have to examine it. We're not talking about we have to know the person shouldn't try to fool themselves. But in the case of what the Ohr HaChaim is explaining is that there's an attraction between the souls, and he says there must be something holy within this girl, within this young woman, and it could be their holiness the holiness of the two souls need to be together, because holiness wants to be together, and therefore there's an attractiveness between the two souls, and therefore there ends up being a relationship, and the question works out, how does that relationship finish? If it's just kind of a one-time attraction where you elevate the soul and the holiness leaves that woman, or does the holiness transform that woman? That's the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh on the story on the Parsha of the Torah of Yifas Torah. In Chassidus it explains that the idea of Yifas Torah and the idea of the going out to battle is not only talking about where there's two people, where there's the person and there's the young woman, and you're finding attractiveness to the young woman. It's all talking about within the person themselves. The battle sometimes is within, and the enemy sometimes is within, and the other side that's different from you is another part of you. And we know that, like the Alter Rebbe talks in Tanya, every Jew has the animal side of them and the holy side, the godly side of them. And you have, like it says later in this week's parsha, it talks about a person who has two wives. And one he loves and one he doesn't love, and that's also talking about, the Alter Rebbe says, the holy soul, which is one wife, and that's one you love. You want to be connected to holiness, and you have the part within you that is not holy, and that is the animal soul that's pulling you to do animal types of things and to behave like an animal. So you have to. So the Torah says a person may think that you totally mistreat the wife that you don't want to have relationships with, that it's causing the wife that you hate. And Torah says you're not allowed to behave that way, and you're not allowed to disinherit your children, and the first children are the firstborn, they get double portion. The same thing over here. You have that we don't hate our animal side, we elevate our animal side. So when we go out to war, similarly, so we have alei vecha, we have to have Hashem's strength that we're over our enemies. We have the enemy from within, and the what happens is that in order to be able to overcome the temptations and to transform ourselves, there's two stages. There's the stage of where we do hiskafia, where we exercise restraint, and therefore we are Eishes Yifas Torah. It's the wife of something beautiful. We have a concept of a wife of something beautiful, and then you have Yifas Torah, something beautiful. Yifas Torah is when we could find in our personality itself the parts of ourself that are challenging, the parts of ourself that are possibly difficult, that we actually are able to transform that into something holy itself, and to make that, it means we're revealing the essence of the soul to such an extent that it makes the entirety of our being to something holy. Then you have Eshes Sifas Torah is the wife of something beautiful, a wife of beauty, and that is when we're not able to transform our character, which means we struggle with challenges, maybe with jealousy and other character traits or other temptations, and we have to know that we could control that. You go out to battle and you take away the things that fall captive to the negativity. So really, the beginning of this week's parsha starts off with something which is very much connected to El, right? We go out to the month of El, is we're out in the world of battle. We're out battling the world, and we're making a cheshbon nefesh. We're making an evaluation of how we did in the battles of life, and we have to ask ourselves, what are we dealing with, and how are we doing the enemy, and how we're not eliminating the negative parts, but actually how are we finding ways to elevate it and use the strength of the animal soul to serve Hashem. And comes Elul, we have this power to actually find what's called the Nekudas Halev, the essence of the heart, the real essence of who we are. We could reveal the essence of the soul. Like Joe, we were talking about before, that the essence of the soul is holy, and the essence of the soul is connected. The essence of the soul loves God and loves holiness. But it gets concealed in the battle of life. But if we're able to reveal that, so then we have Yefas Torah. Then we realize that like it says, Jacob saw Rachel. She was a beautiful woman, something beautiful, because the soul is beautiful, and in all its parts, in all its character. It means it's not what we trade in. We say we want something different. In this woman that you went out into battle, you found beauty. You found beauty in something in the difficulties of life, in your character, in the things that sometimes you may not have been so proud of yourself in your who you are. Actually, finding in those same character traits beauty when you find the holiness within that. So there's a lot. This is, I think, one of the parshas that has one of the most mitzvahs. There's so many mitzvahs over here. It talks about there's the mitzvahs of, we learn about the mitzvahs of tzitzis. We learn about the mitzvahs of tcheles. We learn about the mitzvahs of a person. The famous verse Ki Adam Eitz Hasada. That was last week's parsha. We learned about the verse of when a person has to be hung after, if God forbid there's a case of a capital punishment. We learned the famous idea of Shluch HaKan, this famous mitzvah of sending away the offspring, sending away the mother from the offspring when you find a bird nest, and the Chassidus has a beautiful idea. Explains that the mother is logic, is Bina's understanding, and the children are the midos, are the emotions, and we have to. It's an amazing idea like this. So it says, if you come kikare, the pasuk says that if you come across a chicken's nest and you see, it says the mother bird is flying over the young chicks, or the eggs. So you can't take the mother. You can't take the mother from the children. So it says while you can't take the children while the mother's there. So you have to say shalach send away the mother, and then the children, the young chicks or the young eggs you could take, and this will be a bracha for arichas yom, for long life. So the Chassidus Alter Rebbe, I think, explains that shalach means that the mother is Bina's understanding, and a lot of times what happens is that when we start our avodas Hashem, our service of Hashem, in our working with our kisei when we go out and fight the battle of life, and when we go and we're dealing with the inner struggle of ourselves, and we're finding we find the Yefas Torah, we find the beautiful woman, and we develop within that emotions that we should have midos, feelings towards Hashem in a healthy way, and we're using all our strength, all our qualities in a way that's emotionally healthy spiritually. So the problem is that our life becomes very dependent on our logic, right? This is what I have to do to be a good Jew. This is what I have to do to make Hashem happy. This is what I have to do to find my purpose in life. So you're very much connected to the Bina, to the understanding, and that's hovering over the nest. You're not the logic. You're not letting, once you developed your emotions, you're not letting your feelings for Hashem to have its own life, and your mind becomes very controlling of your avodas Hashem. And therefore it says, Shalach teshalach hasem, send away bina, send away understanding. You've used the understanding to create your emotions, but sometimes you have to be able to actually experience the emotions on their own. And that's the emotions of chesed, of ava, loving Hashem, of gvur, fearing Hashem, that you should become let the children develop themselves, let them show their own character, and don't be so dependent on a logical relationship with Hashem. That's another interesting idea that we have in this week's Parsha. There's also a law in this week's Parsha that talks about we're learning in the month of Elul. The month of Elul is all about Melech Masada. We talked many times that the king is in the field, and when the king is in the field, so the field is a place that the Hashem is not just that he's casual, and therefore, like we've talked about, Hashem is accessible, and everyone has to go out to the field and meet Hashem and ask for brachas and for yeshuas and for strength to be able to do our avodah in Elul. And we have the 13 attributes of mercy, but specifically the idea of the field is in the place of battle. The battle is in the field, a place of where there's temptation, there's hard situations. So the Torah goes into another situation of the field. Now, what happens if a young woman is taken advantage of in the field? And so it says that the young woman cries out. The ayin, and sometimes a person that we're talking about, we're not talking about that a person is the young woman, sometimes referring to the soul, to the person, to the Jewish person, to the Jewish soul that goes out to the field, and in the battle of life falls victim to what's happening in the world, and feels like there's no hope to be able to serve Hashem. There's no hope to get out of the difficulties of life. So it says she cries out, there's no one there to help her. So Chassidus says Ve'ein doesn't mean that there's no one else, that there's no one to help her, but Va'ayin, there's the nothingness, the essence of God is there, the king in the field is there, that even if a person is in a situation where they feel lost in the field, they have to know that there's the ayin, the essence of Hashem, like it says, we say in Hashem, in David Hashem Ayri, we say every day in Elul, we say the idea that Avi v'imi azavani, even if your father and your mother have left you, even if the rules of life, my father and my mother means chachman bina, even if the Torah says there's no hope for you, but Vashem Yasfeini, God gathers me in. The ayin is my shia. There's something there. Even if you call out, all you have to do is call out to Hashem. And there's no situation that there's no solution, there's no help. We're going just quickly through some ideas of this week's Parsha and then try to tie it all together go back to Elul. We have also just a famous story. We have it says there's a pasuk over there talking about different people that could enter the company of marriage. So it says, a Petzuadak is a person who has a physical damage in their body. So a certain person that's certain essential parts of their body that are damaged could cause a reason maybe that he should not be able to initially get married, or at least a woman that could have children. So the word is Petzuadaka with a hey. The Alter Rebbe said that the Petzuadaka has to be written with an aleph. This is just an idea because the story told in this week's Hayom Yom, and it says that in Chabad we write the word Daka, Dalid Kaf Hey, we write it Dalif Kaf Aleph. And so when the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was traveling with his father through Europe, they lived in Russia, but he was traveling through Europe. He was in the city of Prague, and the previous Rebbe went into the city of Prague, and he heard that he knew that there's a tradition that the Maral Shul, what's called the Altanai Shul, which Altanai means old new, or Altanai, the conditional Shul, but it's definitely the old Shul of the Maral of Prague, that there's a Sefer Torah there, that the Kabbalah has it, that the tradition is that Sefer Torah was written by Ezra or checked by Ezra, Sofer, which he was the one who brought the Jewish people back from exile in the first temple to the second temple, and he was a scribe. And the Torah that was over there they only take it out once a year on Simchas Torah, and it's always rolled to Shema Yisrael. And the previous Rebbe took out that Torah and rolled it down to Teitzei, and he checked, and it says B'tzur Daka with an aleph, like the Alter Rebbe said. And also he found that the Friedrich Rebbe also found the second Sefer Torah, I think in Worms, that was written by, the tradition was it was written by the Maram in Rottenburg, and who ended up dying in prison. And I'm not sure if this is the Torah, but this tradition We have the famous story that Ram Rabbi wrote a Sefer Torah while he was in prison with miraculous ink and parchment, and he put it out through the window of the prison, and the Jewish community has that Sefer Torah. I think people say the Sefer Torah now is in Eretz Yisrael, maybe in Tveria. And he also, the previous Rebbe, found that Torah and opened it up and found that it says Petzuadak with an aleph. So just this interesting story that's connected to something that's in this week's Parsha. Hello, Pinchas, doing a short class here. Chaim. So we'll also learn about a very interesting law that we spoke about in other times, but I want to bring it down in this week's parsha. It says about different peoples that can't join the Jewish fold. It means that you shouldn't marry them. Now, a lot of these laws don't apply today because the original peoples that lived in countries are no longer the original the people that lived once upon a time. Meaning to say, once upon a time, when Noach came out of the Teva, right? Noach comes out of the Teva. He had sons and daughters, and they built communities and families. And a lot of these countries that end up being Mitzrayim, right? Everyone says Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is a person. Mitzrayim was a son of Cham, or a grandson, and he was a person. He started a nation. Minyan, Moab, these are all people. These are all peoples that we know who they were, and they started. Edom is Esav, Bnei Yisrael are from Yaakov. Canaan is a person. Greece is a person. These are also those. So the actual countries were peoples that started their own, went off to their own part of land and started a country. And the people that lived there wasn't like today, where you had immigration and mixed societies. People traditionally lived where they came from. That was their peoples. So the people of Midian were the descendants of Midian. The people of Moab were descendants of Moab. The people of Edom were the descendants of Esav. That's what it was. Later, what happened was, towards the end of the first temple, there was Sancherib, the king of Assyria, came, and he said, no longer are people going to be the people no one's going to have claim to any kind of origin. He mixed up society. He wanted everyone to be mixed up. And therefore, the Egyptians are not the descendants of Mitzrayim, and the people living in Greece are not the descendants of Greece. I mean, pretty much he mixed up the entire civilized world. And therefore, it's not just like a folk tale, but halachically, the Rambam says, therefore, a lot of the prohibitions, for instance, the Torah talks in this week's Parsha. What happens if a convert comes from an Egyptian family? The Torah says they have to wait a few generations in order for those peoples to be able to marry in properly into the Jewish people. And there's certain people that can never marry into the Jewish people. God says, I don't want this family, and we're not going to marry into this family. And even if they convert, we're not talking about Gentiles, but even if they convert, there was the ruling, so much so that King David is from Moab, right? Who's King David's grandmother? It was Ruth. We all read about Ruth on Shavuos, in the story of Ruth, the book of Ruth, and she goes how her mother-in-law and father-in-law were from Beit Lechem, and they leave Beit Lechem in a time of famine, and they go to Moab, and their sons marry young princesses. Obviously, they converted them to Orpah and Ruth married to the two sons of Naomi. And when Naomi's husband passes away and her sons pass away, her and her two daughter-in-laws, Orpah goes back and becomes the grandmother of Goliath, the tyrant, and Ruth goes back and marries Boaz, and starts the seed of David, right? The seed of Yishai comes from Ruth, and Ruth's descendants are David, the Mashiach. So, but she was from Moab, and this week's Parsha it says clearly, Lo yavoy amoinu mi'avi b'kal Hashem. I never want someone from the peoples of Ammon and the people of Moab to come to join the Jewish people. And so the people called David a Moavi. They heckled David. They said to David, the Torah says we don't want the Moab people amongst us. And look, your grandmother's from Moab. But the law was, it says Moavi, the males, not the males couldn't enter, not the females. But that they said that's already the fine print. The peoples who are looking to hackle said that's the fine print. Don't confuse me with the facts. It says no one from Moab and you're from Moab. It says that when Shimi ben Gera cursed David HaMelech, it said that he called him he said he gave him Kilani, he cursed me in Klala Nimretzes. And Nimretzes means a very severe curse. And the Gemara says, what did he say? Everyone wants to know. David said to Shlomo, he gave me a severe curse. So but what did he say? Everyone wants to know, what did he say? So, a lot of times we say, this person said something horrible to me. Okay, but what did he say? What did she say? So the Gemara learns that Nimretzes is that in each letter of the word tells us what he said. He said Nimretzes, the nun is, he said you are a Nimretzes. He said the mem was a Mayavi, and he was a Tzoirer, and he was a Roitzeach, and he was a Teyeva, an abomination. But one of the things they called him was a Moavi, that he was from Moab. The root is from Moab. The root is from Moab. Today, the Rambam says it's not applicable because, like I said, Sancheiriv mixed the Jewish people up, so the Egyptians are not the Egyptians. But once upon a time, they were. And therefore, David was heckled because his grandmother was from Moab. But the Torah says a Moavi, a male Moab. And the Torah says why? This is what I wanted to get to. The Torah says an amazing thing. Why can't the people of Ammon and Moab? Who's Ammon and Moab? Who are these people? Where do they show up? Why do we have? Why does God take issue with them? So the fact is they're mishpacha. Someone who's not family is usually there's no issues there. But Ammon and Moab are mishpacha. What does it mean mishpacha? They're Lot's daughters, children, right? Lot had relations with his daughters in the cave. We learned about that in Parshas Vayera, and each one of the daughters have sons. One is Ammon and one is Moab. Right, the older daughter named her son to say Moav. This is from my father, Moav. That this child's my father. So they're the Jewish people's relatives, right? We are the descendants of Avram, and Avram is a cousin, a nephew of Lot. So it's our mishpacha, and God says that I don't want Ammon and Moab to come part of the Jewish people. Now, the Gemara thing in Sanhedrin tells us like this: what happened? What are the people? Why do we have such an issue with Ammon and Moab? So the Torah doesn't leave it open for imagination. The Torah says, "Al dvar shalaykidmu eschem belechem v'mayim b'derech." Because when you went there to Israel, you were hungry, you were thirsty, you were tired. No one was your friend, and the Jewish people just wanted to get there to Israel. And Ammon and Moab said, "No, you're not passing through us," and they weren't hospitable. They didn't come out like kidmu. They didn't initiate and come out to offer you bread and water. And God said, you know what? That's and they rented Bilam to go curse you. We don't want it to do with them. We don't like these people. I don't like the way they behaved. They weren't hospitable. They weren't generous. They weren't gracious. And we don't. You're not going to be part of us. And the Gemara says an amazing thing. From this we learn an amazing thing, that it says that Ammon and Moab, that Lot, Avram sent away Lot. And it says that Hashem only came to speak to Avram. God only came to speak to Avram after he sent away Lot. Why? Because God didn't like Lot. Didn't like Lot's behavior. Didn't like Lot's personality. And only when Lot leaves Avram does Hashem come and talk to Avram. Right? So we see there was a distance. There was a richuk. There was a distance between. Already in times of Avram, between Avram's family and Lot's family. So it says, God so the Gemara teaches us an amazing thing. So the God doesn't say that he doesn't like Ammon and Moab because of the disagreement or the family feud or whatever it was, the uncomfortableness between Avram and Lot back in the day. No, that's the fact that they were rechaikim, that they weren't necessarily close relatives, that they had a kind of a distance, that's far. But had they been hospitable, had they fed food, had they given water to the Jewish people, the Gemara teaches us that Godla, that Legima, someone who gives food to someone, that Mekarvis Rechaikim, that even light, that had they been nice and gracious and hospitable, God would have forgiven whatever the past would have been the past. It would have been Mekarvis Rechaikim. It would have. So we see from here, the Rebbe talks about this many times. Amazing idea that you have sometimes a person tries to think, where could you be engaging with others? Where could you be? What's your power to connect? So you could teach someone. You could do other things. The Gemara says, God legima. Just be a person you serve cholent, you serve fish. You know that when everyone knows that when they come into your shul, there's a nice kiddush. I'm not talking about there's a nice dvar Torah. The dvar Torah is also nice, but they know that there's going to be a piece of food. No one's going to go away hungry. And God the shmekareves is rechaykim. We see that it doesn't say, the Torah doesn't say because Ammon and Moab didn't have a shear, or that Ammon and Moab didn't open up a base medrash for them. It doesn't. The Torah says one thing: Al devar le'kidmu eschem v'lechem mayim, because they didn't come and offer you bread and water. And that's why the Gemara says God legima shemakareves is rechaykim. The Gemara over there says that the story. I think we spoke about this before, but the Gemara says the story that there was there's called Pesel Micha in the time of the Jews leaving Egypt. So in the early years when Moshe Rabbeinu at some point was making his observations of the struggle the Jewish people had in Egypt, that the Egyptians were murdering children, right? Murdering Jewish children isn't a new thing. So the Egyptians were murdering Jewish children. And they were actually, one of the disgusting things they were doing is they were actually putting the children into the be part of the building and part of the wall. They're putting in infants into the wall, alive, not alive on it. Moshe Rabbeinu sees this and he says to God, "What's going on? This is crazy. It's a young child that's put into the wall as if it's a brick." So God says, "If you want to take him out, take him out." So Moshe took him out, and he grew up. He ended up being Micha. Who was Micha? Micha was a person ended up hanging around Moshe. Moshe went in to get a Yosef, a tzaddik. He threw in a piece of earthenware that said Alei Shar and had Hashem's name on it, and it was a powerful piece of earthenware that Moshe threw into the water to sort of say awaken the bones of Yosef, that Yosef should rise out of the Nile because they didn't know where his coffin was. But Micha stood around there and he took that piece of earthenware and he threw it into the fire by the golden calf, and that was the power that made the golden calf be this kind of live kind of entity that people serve. Also, he took a pestle. He took out idols, and it went with him throughout the desert. The Jewish people were traveling in the desert. And this guy Micha, who was taken out of the wall by Moshe, had idols, and he later came to Eretz Yisrael and opened up a place of avodah zarah. And it wasn't that far from the shul. It wasn't that far from the Mishkan. And the Gemara says that he had his pesel Micha, and he had his here we had the Mishkan, and this was offering sacrifices, and there they're offering sacrifices, and the smokes were mixing together, and the angels saying, "What's going on? Let's destroy pesel Micha, destroy the whole. How could you have this the smoke of the karbonos to mix with the smoke of the avodah zarah? Let's destroy the house of Micha." And God said no. You know why? Because one thing Micha had, anyone who came to that place was served a hot meal. And as horrible as it was, and as avodah zarah as well, as God said at the end of the day is, he serves my people, he feeds my people. And that overrides, God said, therefore I'm not destroying his temple of idol worship. And same thing over here, in the same conversation, the Gemara says about Moab and Ammon. Only because they because they didn't feed you. Had they fed you, God would have forgiven, even though he didn't like Lot, and he wouldn't even talk to Avram as long as Lot lived around Avram. But had they showed that they were nice people, hospitable people, caring people, then that would have override the system. So that's an amazing thing to learn. That sometimes you think, what could I give someone? What could I, can I teach someone something? Could I, if someone's going to come to my shul, to my home, is he going to get the best, or she's going to get the best of our Torah? So the Hashem says, that's all nice, that's important, of course, and no one's putting that small. But the end of the day is, if you give someone warmth, you clothe someone, you feed someone, you give someone to drink. So that is Makarav, that's the most strong, most powerful thing you could do. And the Torah continues with different laws that we learned about in this week's Parsha. And about marriage, divorce. The Rabbi has a whole talk about that. The divorce, the idea of divorce, of course, we don't wish it on anyone, but when it happens, it happens. There's a machlokas, there's a disagreement between Besham, Beisul, and Rabbi Kiva. When is divorce permissible? When is it okay? And the Rebbe applies it to the ideas of our avodas Hashem. That a person sometimes as a person has to know when to say, this is the end of this journey. But if you don't find, you mamish don't find, this is your purpose in life, this is your calling in life. Sometimes, and you do proper, avodas, proper evaluation, proper chipus, proper examination. But if it really comes to the conclusion that your avodah is something else, so maybe it's time for you to move on. And so you have to actually ask yourself sometimes, not to stubbornly stay with something, that there is a concept where maybe it's time to pick a new avenue in life. And I'm not going to get into the details of the talk, but the idea basically, if you look at, we can tie everything up and finish the class soon. That the idea is that one of the messages we see in this week's Parsha is the avoda. How do you find your avodas Hashem? What should be the thing you're doing? We talked about the battle, the beginning of this week's Parsha, the idea of the battle within, the finding the Yefas Torah, finding the beautiful you in life, finding your inner beauty, the Yefas Torah. Is it the Yefas Torah or the Eishes Yefas Torah, the two levels that the Alter Rebbe talks about, where you work on your midos, or you transform your midos, where you actually find the inner beauty, you reveal the Nekudas Alev, the essence of your soul is revealed within you, and that transforms you. So that's avoda. We learned about the young woman out in the field, that when she feels that Ayin Meshiela, there's no one there to help her, Ein Meshiela, that there's no one there to help you, it's really Ayin Meshiela, that the king is in the field, anyone could approach the king. There's no situation that you lost. Like King David says, even if you say, my father and my mother have left me, logic has left me, Torah has said it's not, you're not part of society, Hashem Yasfeni, but the 13 attributes of mercy will still gather me in. Even if the Torah says you're a sinner. We're in the month of El, Hashem Yasfeni, the 13 attributes override the system. Tshuva overrides the system. And we learned about a person may think, what can you do? Just be loving and feeding someone. There's nothing more powerful to bring someone who's rachik, a person who's distant, to be a karev close, is just to make the person feel comfortable in your home, give them something, be an open home, let your shul be a shul that people know that I could get something, that not just as a nice chazan or a nice dvar Torah, but I have actually, the food is good there, and I'm going to come out, I walk in hungry, I'm going to walk out full. Kalva savua, right? And then we learn about the idea of knowing your avoda. That in the month of El, when we do the evaluation, we have to know our avoda, know what our avoda is, and sometimes it's okay to know that it's time to make a change. So I want to wish everyone, we're in the month of El. This is a month of work. The avoda is the work is, and has to be with simcha, and has to be with tshuva. And we have to know that no matter what the conclusion of your evaluation is, that Hashem Yasfeni, the 13 attributes, Melech Basada, and no matter what's going on, it's not Ein Moishi Allah, there's not no help, there's not no one to help you. There's Ayin, the essence of God is there, and may Hashem bench us all to have a successful month of Elul, and we should be able to walk into Rosh Hashanah with all the brachas and all the clarity as the best of our ability, with everyone, in a way of simcha, in a way of Yeshuas, and a great Yeshua for everyone. And it says Vishavisa Shivyai, that all captives should be released, and everyone mamish. But we saw this week the conditions that our brothers and sisters currently, as we speak, are sitting nevach, being held captive. Don't take the pasuk out of its literal translation. Let our people go. And we should be able to celebrate together with Mashiach, the Karev, the Shabbos, Chaim.
Good Shabbos.
I'm assuming Matthew says he's still in Spain, so he's not going to be in Shul, but I assume there's a Minyan, and of course, Gadol Legimash and Mekarevis is Archaikim. I'm sure there's a Kiddush, and a warm Kiddush, and everyone should try to participate and come to Shul and to be Mechazik the Minyan, and have a strong Elul. Laila Tov and good Shabbos. Take care.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Welcome.